go wrong, they go wrong, right? It's been one of those days. Everything is going wrong today. I even forgot to record. But anyway, so notice what we did is we started with an alcohol, and where we add, of course it's a Grignard, but keep in mind the oxygen doesn't change place. The oxygen doesn't change place. Now, of course, I'm going to do another one kind of similar to this, kind of the same idea, but I want to show you a one significant difference because I want to show you all the different possibilities that those reactions can provide. I'm just waiting for those who came in late to copy. See, some people join at 3:30. That's good because maybe they realized I always do those sessions at 3:30. All right. If you're still copying, please let me know. It's okay, Celine. We just started. I didn't start at 3. I forgot, just like you. Even though I set it up at 3, and I intended to start at 3, I totally forgot I was outside. Yeah, we did. So Saeed, we always start at 3:30, and I send the email saying 3, and I so I'm not blaming anybody because I myself forgot. So it worked out. All right. So I'm gonna erase, and now I'm gonna do. Sorry, Fatima. All right. So I'm gonna do another one just like this with a, as I said, a difference. We are also adding 2 carbons. It's not the same. So in this case, look, we're still starting with cyclohexanol. Where is the alcohol? Is the alcohol attached to the ring, or is it attached to the ethyl? The ethyl. And what kind of alcohol is this? Primary, secondary, or tertiary? And how do you make a secondary alcohol? Look at your notes. Grignard plus an aldehyde. There's my aldehyde. Actually, Fatima, it's CH3, CH2. No, not CH3, because if you do CH3, then the alcohol will be on the ring. So it's an aldehyde and a Grignard. And of course, this is followed by H2O. How do you make a Grignard? Well, we make a Grignard from a bromo molecule by adding magnesium in ether. And can we go from an alcohol to a Grignard? Yes. How? PBr3. So notice, right, the 2 problems I did were similar in the sense that they both gave me an alcohol. I started with cyclohexanol for both of them. However, only one allowed me to get, one of them was a tertiary alcohol, one is secondary. So it's really important when you're starting Grignard to think where the oxygen is attached, right? I mean, clearly in the first one I did, the oxygen was attached to the ring. So so the oxygen will remain where it starts. In the second one, the oxygen was attached to the ethyl, and therefore my ring was the Grignard and the aldehyde was my addition. Whereas if I had wanted a tertiary alcohol, I started with a ketone and a Grignard. as I said, I'll do those problems will increase in difficulty as we proceed. I'll wait for you guys to finish copying. Of course, the next one I'm going to do is going to be a little more complicated. If you're still copying, just say something so I will not erase. Hi, Johnny. What's the matter? What's the matter, huh? What's the matter? What's the matter, Junjun? All right. Yes, he's my TA. Right, Johnny? You're my TA? Yeah? Hmm? All right, I'm gonna erase. So the next one we're gonna do is that, so let's do something more interesting, is how would you make this molecule starting with cyclohexanol, cyclopentanol, and ethanol. So the three starting material, I'm going to draw them right here, is ethanol. I'm telling you exactly what your starting material is. Cyclohexanol and cyclopentanol. Come on, come on. I want you to know something about Grignard. So the thing about Grignard reactions is that they might seem complicated, but they really aren't, because you always look what kind of alcohol you have. If you have a primary alcohol, I told you what you use, right? Either formaldehyde or epoxide to add 1 or 2 carbons. If you have a secondary alcohol, aldehyde and Grignard. And if you have a tertiary alcohol, what do we add? We add ketone and Grignard. We have choices. Now I'm going to tell you what the choices are, and they are all correct. So this is important to know because that determines what you get, right? You could make this your ketone, and if this is your ketone, this is your Grignard. Or you could make this your ketone, and if this is your ketone, this is your Grignard. Or I could make, sorry, it's going to look bad. I could make this into my ketone, and if this is my ketone, this is my Grignard. All three are correct, right? I mean, think about it. One of them has to be Grignard, and the other has to be a ketone. Now, I'm not going to do all three. I'm only going to do one. So you get to decide, do you want the one in blue, orange, or green and yellow to be the ketone versus Grignard? Blue and orange. Okay, great. Blue and orange. I'm going to erase. I'm going to draw it again. So blue and orange. Because I don't want you to, I want to show you when it's kind of looks nice. And so, drawing. Let me go back to my structure. So we said blue and orange, which is, this is my ketone, and this is my Grignard. All right, keep everything the way it is, right? So your ketone, you could even draw it the way it is so you don't get confused or confuse yourself, right? Here's my ketone. Is this a ketone? Yeah. Plus, and what's my Grignard now? See? Grignard plus ketone followed by H2O gives me that molecule. Stay with the Grignard, because remember I said start with alcohols. How do you make a Grignard? From a bromo alkane by adding magnesium and ether. And how do you get a bromo molecule from an alcohol? Oops, my bad. How do you make a Grignard from an alcohol? You take an alcohol and you add PBr3. Stay with me for a second. Is this one of our starting material? Yeah. Yeah, it's one of our starting material. So guess what? Since it's one of our starting material, I met my what I was asked to do. Now, can you make a ketone from Grignard? No, you can't make ketone from Grignard. You make what? What do we then want to go back to? An alcohol. All right, so I'm going to keep it the way it is. Here's my alcohol. Oh, I made a mistake. It's not ethanol, the starting material. It's propanol. My bad. It is propanol. It's 3 carbons. Sorry. All right. Now, how do you go from an alcohol to a ketone? Easiest thing to use is PCC. Now, look at this alcohol in red. What kind of alcohol is this? Secondary. Where is the oxygen? Is it attached to the ring or to the propanol? It's attached to the propanol. That means this is my Grignard and this is my aldehyde. Why aldehyde? Why does it have to be an aldehyde? Because it's a secondary alcohol. Good job. All right, H2O, aldehyde, plus this is my Grignard. Now, give me a second here, stay with me. How do you make this aldehyde? Because remember, we're starting with alcohols. Can you go from an alcohol to an aldehyde? Yes, PCC. This is my second starting material. See that? We got propanol. Now, how do you make a Grignard? How do you make a Grignard? We make it from a bromine by adding magnesium in ether. And can you go from an alcohol to a bromo alkane? Yeah. What do we add? PBr3. Notice how everything is repeating. Have you noticed that? And that's why, as I said when I started this, it's okay, Rochelle. We're gonna do more. Grignard is not only versatile, it's actually easy because the steps repeat. You make a tertiary from a ketone and a Grignard. You make a secondary from an aldehyde and a Grignard. And you get the ketone from an alcohol. And you get the aldehyde from an alcohol. It's always going to be the same. I'll wait for you to finish copying. And then we do another one exactly, not exactly the same, but kind of the same. Johnny, oh, it's ether. Yeah, magnesium and ether. My handwriting is shitty, Ryan. I'm sorry. I think by now you guys got used to it. Johnny. All right. Next one. Of course, you can write that. You can write CH3, CH2, 2O. You can write CH3, CH2O, CH2, CH3. You can write diethyl ether. Et2O, all of them are obviously acceptable. If you even forget the ether, it's not the end of the world. It really isn't, because it's a solvent. Because magnesium is a solid, you have to dissolve it in something. All right. If you're still copying, say something. If you're not, just wait and something. Okay, Fatima still copying. She said something. All right. Done. Anybody else? Okay. Next one. Let's do another one that's more interesting. Starting only with ethanol. You can only use ethanol. Make how many carbons does the molecule I have drawn has? 6. How many carbons does ethanol have? 2. So guess how many ethanols we're going to use? 3, right? Fatima, 3. All right. You want to try it out, or you want me to solve it? How about you try it? Fatima, you too. It's okay if you make a mistake. Listen, I'm going to do a whole bunch of those today, right? Look at what I did in the problem before and follow the path. I'm going to quiet down. I'm going to give you guys about maybe 3 to 4 minutes. All right. How did you guys do? What kind, okay, what kind of alcohol is this? Tertiary. How do you make a tertiary alcohol? Grignard and a ketone. Where is the ketone? Where is the oxygen attached? Guess what? I'm going to keep it the way it is so you don't get confused. See, I put the oxygen right here plus Grignard. Ketone plus Grignard gives me a tertiary alcohol. Let's stay with the Grignard for just a minute. How do you make a Grignard? From Bromo molecule. Yeah, of course, CH3, CH2 is the same thing I drew, right? Followed by magnesium in ether. And how do you make a bromo molecule? From an alcohol by adding PBr3. Is that ethanol? My starting material? Yes. And so notice I went back because I remember the question said make this molecule starting only with ethanol. So if you're only allowed to use ethanol, right? Don't use methanol or propanol. Even though it might work out, it's not what I said you could use. Let's stay now with the ketone for a minute. Remember, we want to go back to an alcohol. What kind of alcohol is this? It's a secondary alcohol, right? Let me draw it again. Secondary alcohol to a ketone, what do you use? PCC. How do you make a secondary alcohol? How do you make a secondary alcohol? Grignard and aldehyde, right? Grignard and aldehyde. Here's my aldehyde, and here's my MgBr Grignard. Now, let's stay for a second with the Grignard. Making this Grignard, does that differ from making this Grignard? No. So don't be lazy. I'm gonna be lazy because I don't want to, do that. But it's go back, right? You get Grignard from a bromo, and you get the bromo from an alcohol, right? Now the question is, how do we make an aldehyde? We make an aldehyde from an alcohol by adding PCC. See how the steps are repeating? Have you noticed that yet? I lost two people, by the way. Right, and again, I say it like I'm going to tell you one more time. This is not hard, but it really does require you seeing it multiple times, and that's why I'm doing this review session all on Grignard, so you really get to see that those reactions are not hard because they repeat. It's the same steps over and over. You could, I don't understand, but to do both ways to solve. I don't understand what you mean by both ways. I mean, yes, there's always more than one way to solve those questions, but I don't know what you mean by do it both ways. Whichever way you use, as long as your starting material is ethanol, I'll give you full credit. It's not complete listing for you. What do you mean by complete listing? Getting lost. You got to be patient, Nusrat, right? I mean, this is organic chemistry. It's complicated shit. If it was easy, I wouldn't be here. When I used to teach Chem 103, I never did a review session on the weekend because it's easy stuff, right? It's baby stuff. This is not baby stuff. This stuff really needs help. You need help for that, and that's why I'm here. The good old days, right? I mean, I remember teaching Chem 103, and I'd feel like a handful of people out of like 150. And then they punished me by putting me in organic chemistry, so I have to fail more people. Far left, MGBR. Oh, I didn't write followed by H2O. Oh, it's just I showed you how to make this molecule. PCC. To get, I didn't show how to make the one in pink because it's the same as the one in pink, right? I mean, you should show the steps, obviously. As I said, on exam day, don't be lazy, but you should show it. Of course, guess what's coming next? One that's even more complicated. I'll wait for you to finish copying. Yeah, of course you should. As I said, Raisa, I don't want to do it again because it's a. So just like last exam, and I'm going to tell you the same thing I told about the last exam, you will get 1 to 2 mechanisms and 1 to 2 synthesis. So last exam it was 1 and 1, right? I usually never write more than 1 to 2. Like it's either if I give you 1 mechanism, I'll give you 2 synthesis. I give you 2 mechanisms, I'll give you 1 synthesis, right? Or I can give you 1 and 1, but I will not give you 2 mechanisms and 2 synthesis because I think that would be a little bit much. But something like that. It's and I by the way I already did the exam, and it's really not that not that complicated. If you've been showing up to class, you should do well on the exam. If you've been viewing the recordings, you will be do well on the exam. Okay. Anybody still copying? If you are, just let me know. Okay, I'm gonna erase. As I said, more complicated. Starting with ethanol, cyclohexanol, and cyclopentanol. How do you make this molecule? Actually, Fatima, I did say it's going to be harder. Instead of PBr3, always try to go back to a tertiary alcohol. Because once you get to a tertiary alcohol, it's really easy. So instead of PBr3, ask yourself, how do you make shit? How do you make shit? Is it over? I know they were up 13-7. I was good. Josh, you should get extra credit for this. I gotta tell you, you made my day. And I don't like Philly, so that's a bonus. All right, is this a Markovnikov or anti-Markovnikov addition? Anta. So what do we add? HBr and peroxide. How do you make an alkene? Is this a Hoffman or Zaitsev alkene? Bulky base. Okay, great. Bulky base, and you guys beat me to it. Now remember, we're going back to get an alcohol. Can I get this bromoalkane from an alcohol? Why HBr, not PBr3? Of course, you're right, Fatima, but I want to know why. Because it's a tertiary alcohol, not primary or sex. All right. It's okay. Don't worry. I know what you meant. All right. Did I show you how to make this molecule before? From cyclohexanol, ethanol, and cyclopentanol. Yeah. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to let you finish copying, and then I'm going to erase, and I'm going to show you how to make only this molecule. Is that because I ran out of space? Fair? All right. So I'm just waiting. I'm not done yet. I'm still going to work it out all the way. But now that we have a tertiary alcohol, right, we use a ketone and a Grignard. And then we get to a secondary alcohol, we use a Grignard and an aldehyde, and that will give me all the starting material. So I'm going to go back only to the one I circled in blue. And remember, I said ethanol, cyclohexanol, and cyclopentanol. I'm just waiting for you to finish copying. Anybody still copying? We're all good? All right. Somebody, if you guys don't say anything, I'm going to erase. If you are copying, just let me know. All right. Nobody said anything. You guys are good. I'm going to erase. Erase. And so now, as I said, I'm going to start with doesn't matter which one is the ketone, which one is the Grignard. No. And because of that, I want you to know I'm going to make this into my Grignard and this into my ketone. Fair? So I am going to say this is my Grignard. And so again, just because I want to make sure that you're not confused, and here's my ketone plus Grignard gives me a tertiary alcohol. And I want to highlight it. Notice the oxygen remains where it is. This is followed by H2. Stay with the Grignard for a second. How do you make this Grignard? We make Grignard from bromo by adding magnesium in ether. And how do you make a bromo molecule? From an alcohol by adding what? PBr3. Is cyclohexanol one of my starting materials? Yeah. So we see we were so keep work. So if the question says start with cyclohexanol, you gotta go back to cyclohexanol, not something else, right? I mean, if I'm telling you start with this material, you gotta start with that material. Now let's look at this molecule. That's a ketone. How do you get a ketone? From an alcohol by adding PCC. What kind of alcohol is this? Secondary. Is the oxygen attached to the ring or to the ethyl? To the ethyl. So the ethyl is going to be my aldehyde, and the ring is going to be my Grignard. MgBr. This is followed by H2. Now, let's do the same thing. And I did say this repeats. How do you make a Grignard? From a bromo molecule by adding magnesium in ether. And how do you make a bromo molecule? From an alcohol by adding PBr3. HBr actually in this case would work. Is cyclohexanol, cyclopentanol, one of my starting material? Yes, right? Finally, how do you get an aldehyde? From an alcohol by adding PCC. Is ethanol one of my starting material? Please tell me you're noticing this. All these steps keep repeating. We lost another person. All these steps keep, have you noticed that? The steps keep repeating, and that's what makes Grignard not only versatile, and I don't say this lightly, they're really easier to do than other stuff because of the flexibility and because they all repeat. The steps keep repeating, so you don't really have to worry about, you know, what the product is, and it's always going to be pretty much similar steps. Exactly, Joshua. It is multiple. It's a lot of steps, but they're not complicated because pretty much the steps keep repeating, right? I mean, it's you're doing the same thing over and over. Of course, you should always remember what you learned in chapter 7 and 8, right? How do you make shit from an alkene? How do you make an alkene from a haloalkane? That is also required sometimes. If you know that and you know how to do Grignard by repeating the steps, this is not too complicated. Next one. Okay. Let's do one that's more complicated. I'll do a couple more so you've seen every kind of possibility that you should be aware of. If you're still copying, just let me know. All right. Yes, Celine's, no problem. Actually, I know Celine's. She hung out in my office twice. I'm going to try to make a trip to campus this week. I don't know what day, but I'll figure something out. Finished? Okay. Next one. How do you go from cyclohexanol Yes, actually, Nusrat, we changed the book in the spring of 2018. So anything before 2018, we had a different textbook and I had to follow it. And you know, I put the old exams because I don't want my students to think that I'm hiding the exams from you. Like for example, I don't put exams from like 2007 and 8 and 5, even though I taught organic chemistry, because we had even more different of a book. And so Hillary, I don't know yet. I'm gonna see either go Wednesday or Thursday, but once I figure it out, I will let you know. The other thing is, I was thinking about last night. Maybe I'll add one. I have 2 surveys, and some of you submitted them, and thank you. Maybe I'll add another survey So you'll have 3 surveys, and I'll give you at least 2 points, if not 3. So you can get between 6 and 9 points depending on how it goes. Did you say you're going back to US? I guess that means you were not in the US. Okay. Now let's look at this molecule. Cyclohexanol. Yes, any day before the test. As long as I get them, even in the morning of the test, I'll give you full credit. Now, what's tricky about this, and I want you to know, is that we added 2 separate metals. And if we are adding 2 separate metals, guess how many Grignard is that? That is at least 2 separate Grignards. You can add 2 metals with 1 Grignard, right? Makes sense? And you know, I can make the bottom one an ethyl if you want. It doesn't make a difference, but I'm trying to show you all the different possibilities. Do I have an alcohol? Yeah. What kind of alcohol is this? How do you make a tertiary alcohol? Grignard and ketone. Where is the oxygen attached to? Is it attached to the methyl or to the ring? Here's my ketone plus, plus followed by, okay. You don't have to show how you got the Grignard because it just said that's your starting material. How do you make a ketone? Where do you get a ketone from? You're right, from an alcohol by adding PCC. Can you make this alcohol with Grignard? Look at it. Take a moment, look at it. Can you make this alcohol with Grignard? No, we can't. So the question we ask ourselves, how do we make shit? How do you make shit? From an alkene. Is this a Markovnikov or anti-Markovnikov addition of an anti? And because of that, what do we add for anti-Markovnikov, Fatima? Did you say HBr? David, how do you make an alcohol anti-Markovnikov from an alcohol? PH3, THF, followed by H2O2 and OH minus. Sorry, I don't have space. All right. We make shit out of an alkene, out of alkenes. How do you make an alkene? How do you make an alkene? Haloalkane. Is this a Zaitsev or Hoffman alkene? Zaitsev. So what do we add? Small base. Any small base will do. OH minus will do. Can I make a bromo molecule out of an alcohol? Yeah, we add HBr. Please tell me now, the rest is easy, right? Why is it easy? Well, what kind of alcohol is this? It's a tertiary. How you make a tertiary alcohol? Where is the oxygen? On the ring or on the metal? It's on the ring plus, give me a second, CH3 MgBr followed by H2O. Where do you get this ketone from? Where do you get a ketone from? from an alcohol by adding PCC. Is this my starting material? Yes. See? Notice how the steps are pretty much the same and they just repeat. You make a tertiary alcohol out of a ketone, you make a secondary alcohol of an aldehyde, and so forth. You make a primary alcohol out of a either obviously Grignard with either a formaldehyde or epoxide. Next one is obviously going to be kind of the same. By the way, just to let you know, so you feel better about the exam, the questions I will give you on the exam will not be harder than what I just did, right? Like something like similar to the problems we've done, right? I mean, obviously I'm going to write a new problem, but it's the same kind of difficulty level. I'll wait for you to finish copying. It's called being a college student. Let me know when I can erase. If you're dreaming about organic chemistry, that means you're learning. I'm waiting for somebody to say wait, because if somebody's copying, I'm not in a rush. Anybody still copying? Yes, the test is December 8th, and then the final is December 15th. And then we're done for the semester. Would you believe it? We only have like less than 17 days. Then you never have to see me again. I'm gonna miss you guys, but you know, Fatima beat me to it. Anyway, I'm gonna erase. Let's do another one. This time, I'm gonna give you a chance to try it out. So the question is, and notice what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep the same starting material. Starting with cyclohexanol, how would you make if you have 3 finals on the same day, John Paul? The City College rules says you could take a makeup for the middle final. I just want you to know that. So if you have a final at 10 in the morning and one at 2 and one at 5, the City College says humanely you have the right to ask the professor who teaches you middle class to give you a makeup exam because you have 3 finals on the same day. Same thing for you, Zopia. This is actually a rule. This is not me just telling you, this is your right. And so you could tell the professor in the middle, right? Say, I have 3 finals. One is the makeup exam, and they have to give you an incomplete, and you can take the makeup exam. Well, 2 is normal. I mean, that usually happens. Oh, you want to try this one out? Okay, I like that. I'm going to quiet down for a couple of minutes. How did you guys do? I lost somebody. I said, how did you guys do? And somebody's like, shit, I'm leaving. So, question. What kind of alcohol is this? Primary. How many carbons did we add to the ring? Fatima. No, I'm talking to the alcohol. One. How do you make a primary alcohol by adding one carbon? You take formaldehyde, right? And we add Grignard to it. This carbon has how many carbons attached to it, Hillary? How many carbon? One. I like your question. You're like, hey, how are you? What? Okay, so formaldehyde gives me that molecule. By the way, the rest of this I just did with you a little earlier, but I'm going to work it out anyway. How do you make a Grignard? We make a Grignard from a bromo molecule by adding magnesium in ether. If you look at this molecule, you can, by the way, Jean-Paul, you could actually work back until you get a tertiary alcohol, and then the rest of the steps will be exactly what I did in the problem before. This is a little shorter. Well, I'm not saying you're wrong. So you could have, I want to say it, you could have made this out of an alkene, and you could make the alkene out of a haloalkane. I'm going to show you. And then the haloalkane, you could have made it from an alcohol, which is the same molecule I showed you before. This is perfectly acceptable. It's just a different way. And again, I think I said this, and I'm going to say it again. The thing about Grignard, because they are very versatile, there are multiple ways of solving the same problem. I usually like to do the shortest way because I know because I did this for a living. I know each one of those steps take like 3 hours of work in the lab, right? And so I try to do it but if you would do this on my exam and it's longer than mine, it's perfectly fine as long as the steps are good. Right? So I'm going to erase this because this is not relevant, but I was answering a question that John Paul asked. Now, how do you make shit? Is this a Markov-Nikov or anti-Markov-Nikov addition? How do you make an alkene? From a haloalkane by adding, is this a Zaitsev or Hoffman alkene? So we add, and how do we make a halo molecule? Remember, we want to go back to an alcohol. This is tertiary, so we add HBr. Can you make this alcohol? What kind of alcohol is this? Primary, secondary, or tertiary? Hillary? Kind of alcohol is this? And where is the oxygen? Is it attached to the ring or is it attached to it's attached to the ring. So it's a ketone plus, I'm running out of space, MgBr, Grignard. And finally, how do you make this ketone? From an alcohol, oh, come on. From an alcohol by adding PCC. And that's my starting material, which is cyclohexanol, right? Did you see? When I started this today, everybody was panicking, right? And by the way, I promise you this, the question I have on my exam is definitely easier than this one. And so the thing about Grignard is that one, they're versatile. Two, they're there's a pattern, right? They keep the steps repeat. Once you figure this out, it really is, it's actually easier than some of the synthesis we did in chapter 8 and 9, because it's pretty much uh, accomplish the same thing by doing pretty much the same reactions over and over. So tomorrow, just to let you know, we are doing our last chapter. And I want to say today, it's probably the easiest chapter, which I like, because I really don't want to end up on a chapter that's really challenging. So we're going to do a relatively easy chapter, uh, but you can't figure it out on your own. Like, please do show up to class, because it's not easy that, you know, it's easy to read. It's easy because once I explain it, it's easy to figure out what the products are, for infrared spectroscopy. And I'll show you a little way, some easy ways to figure out what the product is based on. No, well, we started tomorrow and we'll finish it Wednesday, because what I'm going to do is Wednesday, I'm going to do like a whole bunch of problems. I have actually, if you go on Blackboard, there's uh, under content, there's a folder called IR. I think there are 24 problems. I'm going to do all 24 on Wednesday. So tomorrow I'll do the chapter and I'll start on a couple of easy problems. Then on Wednesday, I'll do 25 problems, and then you'll be fine. Okay. So, good question. So, Rochelle, what I'm going to do is, actually, anybody still copying? Anybody? No, no, no. Anybody? All good? Okay. I'm gonna erase. Pay attention to what I'm gonna tell you. Here we go. So pay attention so you know exactly what I'm gonna do and when. So next Saturday, I'm doing spring 20. Next Sunday, I'm doing fall 20. And next Monday, I'm doing spring 21. These are the last 3 exams I taught. And by the way, the good news for you is that all these 3 exams were online. So I'm doing the problems, the exams I gave online, because as you know, the exams in person were a little easier because it was closed notes, closed books. Everybody had to remember everything. So these are consistent. So your exam would look exactly like one, like those. And so Saturday we'll do a session like 3:30. Sunday we'll do a session like 3:30. And Monday will be class time 9 till 10:45. And then our exam is on Wednesday, which is, that will be fall 21. I wrote the exam. It's already, and well, it is what it is, right? This is part of being a student, Rochelle. The class goes fast because we cover a lot of material, and as long as you don't fall behind, you're fine. And I think you guys are not falling behind. All right, I'm gonna stop recording.